This was it, the masterpiece of 1,000 years of bioengineering. High Counselor Valerius' voice echoed through the Grand Convocation Hall, a massive chamber carved from the heart of a moon. His tone was a strange mix of holy reverence and pure primal fear, and every single being in that hall felt it too. Before them, trapped inside a shimmering, crackling energy field, was the Xylos dragon. This was a creature that knew only rage. It was the ultimate weapon, the final deterrent. You can't reason with it, you can't tame it, and its power to destroy is absolute. The dragon, a beast of black scales and veins that pulsed with what looked like magma, threw itself against the containment field. The whole moon shuddered. Nothing in the galaxy could stop it. And as the most powerful leaders in the universe stared at their terrifying creation, none of them noticed the small, quiet figure that had just toddled into the hall. Drawn in by all the pretty, shimmering lights, High Counselor Valerius, a crystalline being that splintered light into 1,000 tiny rainbows, gestured toward the raging beast. For generations, he boomed, the Council has searched for an answer to the Void Swarm. We've built fleets. We've constructed fortresses among the stars. And we've trained armies that span entire systems. And still, the swarm consumes everything. Today, we don't offer a new strategy. We offer a conclusion. This is the Xylos dragon, the first-class 10 autonomous bioweapon. A murmur went through the crowd, a messy symphony of clicks, hums, and psychic whispers. General Kahar of the Grok Dominion, a giant whose stone-like skin was covered in battle scars, crossed his 4 massive arms. He looked grudgingly impressed. Beside him, the shapeless delegates from the Signian Vale, a people of pacifists, shimmered with anxious, horrified light. Its scales are a weave of carbine and bioceramics, tough enough to shrug off a direct hit from a capital sheep's main cannon. Valerius went on, his voice filled with a creator's pride. Its heart is a biological fusion reactor, powering muscles that can tear a planet's crust apart. And its breath. He paused as the dragon opened its mouth, showing a throat that glowed like a newborn star. Is a focused plasma stream that can melt an asteroid to slag in less than 17 seconds. To prove it, they teleported a small planetoid into the cage. The dragon, seeing a new target for its bottomless rage, unleashed a torrent of white-hot energy. The rock just vanished in a silent, brilliant flash. The demonstration was brutal, terrifying, and it worked. This thing wasn't an animal. It was a living apocalypse. The containment field flickered violently, its hum rising to a piercing shriek. The dragon's roar was a vibration felt deep in the bones, a primal scream of pure rage that shook everyone to their core. This was power. This was fear made real. This was the galaxy's new god of war. It was in that moment of shared, terrified awe that General Kahar's eyes caught something. An anomaly. A small, 2-legged life form, maybe a meter tall, was walking, a little wobbly but with purpose, straight for the stage. What is that? Kahar's voice rumbled, low and dangerous. Valerius followed his gaze and his crystalline body went rigid. By the void. It's a human child. The little girl, with a mess of blonde hair and a simple tunic, had somehow wandered away from the human delegation's family area. Now she was toddling across the polished floor, directly toward the seething incarnation of death. Panic rippled through the hall. Guards, subdue the specimen. A Signian delegate flashed in panicked crimson. Hold, Valerius commanded, his voice sharp as broken glass. Any sudden energy burst near the dais could destabilize the containment field. We can't risk it. They were trapped by their own security protocols, forced to choose between the child's certain death and a catastrophe that would vaporize the entire moon. All they could do was watch. Its life signs are pathetically fragile, a medical analyst whispered from a console, her voice full of disbelief. Brittle skeleton, soft skin. The shockwave from the dragon's roar alone should be fatal, but the little girl, whose name they would later learn was Lily, wasn't upset. To her, the world-ending roar was just a loud noise. The shimmering containment field was just a pretty, sparkly wall. Her world was simple, and in it she saw a very big, very loud animal that looked sad. The Xylos dragon, whose entire life was a song of pure fury, suddenly stopped thrashing. Its huge head, bigger than a shuttle, slowly lowered. Its eyes, which burned like dying suns, narrowed. For the first time since its birth, the all-consuming rage that was its entire personality was pierced by something new, curiosity. This creature, which could sense the faintest energy ripple across a solar system, was now completely focused on the tiny, insignificant spark of life bravely walking towards it. The collective breath of the Intergalactic Council was held, a silent prayer sent up to 1,000 different gods. They were about to witness the fastest, most pointless death in galactic history. Lily wasn't afraid. In her 3 years, she'd learned that big, loud things were often just lonely. Her family's dog, a canid morph that many aliens found terrifying, was really just a big softie who wanted his ears scratched. This thing was much, much bigger and a whole lot louder, but it seemed like the same idea. It was in a cage and it was yelling. It was upset. She reached the stage and put her small hands on the containment field. It felt warm and buzzed against her palms, like a giant, purring cat. "Hello," she said. Her tiny voice was completely swallowed by the enormous hall, but somehow it felt like the only sound in the universe. The dragon's head was now pressed right up against its side of the energy barrier. A low growl rumbled in its chest, but it was different now. The sharp edges of its rage were gone, replaced by a deep, questioning vibration. It could feel the child's faint life signature, the gentle pressure of her hands on the field. It was a sensation so alien, so completely opposite to its programming, that its combat brain didn't know how to file it. Threat level, 0. Intent, unknown. General Kahar finally started to move, his patience gone. He couldn't just stand by and watch a child get vaporized, no matter the species. "Valerius, I'm intervening," he roared, ready to send in his personal guard. Consequences be damned, but he was too late. Lily stood on her tiptoes, leaning forward until her face pressed against the warm, humming field. She closed her eyes and did what her parents always did when she was sad. She offered the one thing she knew that made everything better. She kissed the containment field, her small lips landing directly opposite the tip of the dragon's colossal, scaly snout. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a psychic blast. It was just a kiss. A simple, childish act of affection, given to the deadliest weapon ever made. For a single, long second, nothing happened. And then, a change started. It wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, deep, and 1,000 times more shocking than any plasma blast. The violent, chaotic energy of the Xylos dragon began to settle. The inferno inside, it didn't go out, but it was banked, brought under control. The angry red light pulsing in its veins softened to a warm, steady orange. The containment field, which had been screaming under the strain, dropped its output by 90%. The piercing shriek fell to a gentle, almost musical hum. The dragon's eyes, once pits of mindless rage, cleared. The fire was still there, but now it was an intelligent flame. It blinked slowly. The creature's violent rampage hadn't just been paused. It was over. It took a long, slow breath, and the sound it made wasn't a roar. It was a low, deep rumble that felt less like a threat and more like a purr. The Xylos dragon, the living apocalypse, held perfectly still. Its gaze locked on the tiny girl who had just kissed its nose, and then there was silence, a silence so total it was more deafening than any explosion. The Grand Convocation Hall, a room that had decided the fate of stars, was plunged into a vacuum of stunned speechlessness. General Kahar was frozen mid-movement. The Signian delegates were a calm, unreadable blue. High Counselor Valerius just stood there, his mandibles hanging open. Every commander, philosopher, and emperor in that room was united in a single state of complete, helpless shock. The data streams charting the dragon's power output flickered and were replaced with readings that made no sense. Neural activity had shifted from pure aggression to a complex state of contentment. Protective instinct, the weapon designed to feel nothing but rage, was now feeling something. The council's computers couldn't even translate. Impossible. The word was a hoarse whisper from Valerius that shattered the silence. Just then, 2 frantic humans, Lily's parents, sprinted into the hall. With a choked cry, her mother scooped her up. Lily, safe and totally oblivious, just looked back at the giant creature and waved. "Bye-bye, doggy." She chirped Dot in response. The Xylos dragon let out another one of those soft, chest-rumbling purrs and lowered its head in what looked, for all the world, like a nod. The meeting fell apart. Later, in a secure debriefing room, chaos ruled. They replayed the scene over and over, the little girl, the press of her lips, and the instant System-wide change and the most dangerous being alive, it had to be a weapon, an admiral from the Draconis sector insisted. A new kind of psychic attack deployed through an innocent-looking host. Devious, our sensors scanned the entire psionic spectrum. There was nothing counted a member of the Psion Enclave. The only energy we registered was a tiny amount of bioelectric feedback from the child's nervous system and kinetic force measuring less than a single Newton. It was, for all intents and purposes, a meaningless gesture. General Kahar slammed a heavy fist on the table. That creature's brain was hardwired for rage. Its every cell is designed to reject pacification. It cannot be tamed. And yet, Valerius interjected, his voice soft and haunted. We all saw it. It wasn't just tamed. It was changed. He pointed to a live feed from the hall. The dragon was now lying down, curled up inside the field. Its eyes were closed and its breathing was slow. Its energy output was stable, about enough to power a small city, not kill a star. Kahar, the great warrior, looked profoundly disturbed. His entire worldview was built on overwhelming force. What he had just seen didn't compute. It was a variable he couldn't plan for. This changes our whole understanding of power, he muttered. We measure strength in megatons. We never accounted for this. What is this affection the human database mentions? Is that what they call this new weapon? High Counselor Valerius pulled up the file on the human species. It was a thin file. They were new on the galactic stage, known for being a frustrating paradox, brilliant but irrational, fragile but tough, capable of both horrific violence and profound kindness. They were seen as a minor power, too emotional to be a real threat or a useful ally. Their emotions, especially their focus on family and empathy, were officially listed as a strategic weakness. We were wrong, Valerius stated, his voice heavy with the weight of this new reality. We saw their compassion as a flaw, a vulnerability. We never once thought it could be a force of its own. A Signian delegat shimmered. They don't conquer with ships and cannons, it pulsed. They conquer with connection. They disarm with empathy. The council looked again at the image of the sleeping dragon. It was made to be the ultimate symbol of fear. Now, it looked like a peaceful guardian. The kiss hadn't just stopped its rampage. It had rewritten its very purpose. It had reached past all the genetic programming and touched the creature's core, offering it the one thing it never had, a connection. It was no longer a weapon to be aimed. It was a protector that had chosen a side. It had chosen the little girl. General Kahar felt a new kind of fear, colder and deeper than any he'd ever felt on a battlefield. It wasn't fear of a bigger gun, but fear of a better idea. How do you fight a species whose greatest power is something you can't measure, can't build, and can't steal? He asked the silent room. How do you build a shield to defend against a kiss? The question hung in the air, terrifying and unanswerable. The balance of galactic power hadn't just shifted. The very definition of power had just been broken. For centuries, the galaxy looked at humanity and saw only weakness, a messy flood of fragile emotions. That day, they learned that in the softest, most illogical gestures, there's a power that can disarm the deadliest weapons. They learned that what they'd always dismissed as a flaw was actually humanity's greatest strength. If you want to hear more stories about humanity's unexpected and profound impact on the universe, make sure to subscribe for more. The Xylos dragon was built to be the final word in a universe of conflict. A power so absolute it would end all war through pure terror. But a small human child, with a simple act of trust, showed the might of the galaxy that true power isn't the ability to destroy, it's the ability to connect. The council thought they were unveiling their ultimate weapon. What they really saw was the beginning of a new truth, one that would change their future forever. The age of fear didn't begin that day. Instead, they had just witnessed its end.